That morning, no one expected a single act of defiance to change military history. What began as routine training became a moment every soldier on base would remember, and one that would test the difference between following orders and doing what's right. The sun crested the horizon over Camp Pendleton, casting long shadows across the training fields. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Hale stood at attention in the crisp dawn air, his boots planted firmly in the dew-kissed grass. The scent of salt from the nearby Pacific mingled with the faint metallic tang of gun oil from the armory. Around him the platoon formed up in precise rows, utilities pressed and insignias gleaming under the first light. Hale's gloved hand rested lightly on the harness of his partner Rex, a Belgian Malinois with fur the color of wet sand and eyes that scanned the perimeter like a sentinel. "Platoon! Attention!" The command snapped from Lieutenant Commander Eleanor Vasquez, her voice cutting through the quiet hum of idling Humvees. She paced the front, her boots thudding softly on the packed earth, clipboard in hand. Vasquez was a decade into her SEAL career, her frame compact and unyielding, the kind of officer who could quote regs from memory while navigating a night insertion. Today's exercise, scent tracking in contested terrain. Hale, your team leads. Remember, precision over speed. We track, we secure, we report. Hale nodded once, sharp and economical. "Aye, ma'am." At 32, he was the handler for Rex, a K9 with 3 deployments under his collar, Afghanistan dust still metaphorically clinging to his pores. Their bond was forged in the silence of long patrols, where words were radios and trust was instinct. Rex sat motionless beside Hale, ears pricked, his breath steady against the chill. No leash, just the subtle pressure of Hale's fingers on the harness. A silent cue that spoke volumes in the hierarchy of man and dog. The platoon moved out as one, a disciplined ripple of motion. Footsteps echoed in unison, the faint jingle of gear, the only deviation from silence. They crossed into the mock village setup, abandoned structures of plywood and chain link simulating urban sprawl. Hale knelt, offering Rex a sample scent article, a worn sock from the training dummy, sealed in plastic until now. "Such," Hale murmured, the German command word low and firm. Rex inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring, then lifted his head, locking onto the invisible trail. This was routine. SEAL handlers like Hale lived by it, the chain of command that turned chaos into order. Mornings began with PT at 500, push-ups in the sand, runs along the surf line, where waves crashed like distant artillery. Afternoons meant weapons quills, the crack of M4s precise and measured. Evenings, review of after-action reports under fluorescent lights in the ready room, where coffee steamed in mugs etched with unit crests. Loyalty wasn't shouted, it was in the salute held a beat longer, the shared glance after a flawless drill. Rex embodied that, unwavering, his loyalty a mirror to the team's. Hale had lost a point man in Helmand once. Rex had found the body, sitting vigil until extraction. No fanfare, just duty. Vasquez watched from the observation post, her radio crackling with updates from spotters. "Hale, maintain visual on your 6. Terrain's got trip hazards." Her tone was even. "Professional. No room for doubt in the ranks." Hale keyed his mic. "Copy that, ma'am. Rex has the line." The dog moved forward at a steady trot, Hale matching stride for stride, his eyes tracing the ground for anomalies. The platoon fanned out in support, shadows lengthening as the sun climbed, but routine fractured on the edge of the village mock-up. As Rex veered toward a cluster of derelict shacks, his posture shifted, tail stiff, hackles subtle but rising. Hale froze, hand tightening on the harness. "Easy, boy." The air carried a faint, unnatural scent. Not the standard training markers, but something acrid, like burned rubber mixed with fear sweat. Rex pawed the dirt, unearthing a scrap of fabric, blue cotton torn at the seam, not from any issued gear. "Contact," Hale reported, voice level but urgent. "Anomalous item, ma'am. Not ours." Vasquez approached, her squad in tow, boots crunching gravel. She examined the fabric, brow furrowing. Bag it. Could be contamination from civvies. Camp Pendleton bordered civilian trails. Strays wandered in sometimes, but protocol demanded verification. Hale complied, sealing the scrap in an evidence pouch. But Rex wasn't done. The dog strained forward, nose to the ground, leading toward a chain-link fence marking the base perimeter. Beyond it lay scrubland, dry chaparral rolling toward the highway. "Rex, heel!" Hale commanded, but the Malinois whined low, insistent. A sound Hale knew meant something vital. He glanced at Vasquez, the chain of command weighing heavy. "Ma'am, he's locked on. Permission to pursue?" Vasquez hesitated, eyes scanning the fence. Regulations were clear. Training stayed within bounds. Crossing meant paperwork, potential shutdown of the exercise. "Negative, Hale. Secure the site and RTB." Her order was ironclad, the hierarchy's spine. But Hale saw the conflict in her stance, the slight shift of weight, the way her gaze lingered on Rex's unyielding focus. Hale knelt again, coaxing Rex back, but the dog's eyes stayed fixed on the fence, a quiet defiance in his posture. Hale's hand trembled faintly on the harness, not from fear but from the pull of that bond. Duty said, "Obey." Conscience whispered of what might lie beyond. The platoon watched, silent witnesses to the fracture. Radio static hummed in the background, the wind whispering through the brush like a held breath. In the ready room later, as the team debriefed under the hum of overhead fans, Hale couldn't shake it. The fabric scrap sat on the table, anomalous and accusing. Vasquez reviewed the logs, her pen scratching methodically. "Solid work today, team. Anomalies happen." But her eyes met Hale's, a flicker of unease passing unspoken. That night, as Hale walked Rex through the kennels, the scent of wet fur and kibble heavy in the air, his radio buzzed. Base security, urgent tone. "Hale, stand by for priority. Civilian report, missing local female, last seen near perimeter. Fathers on scene, distraught. Description matches, something off base." Hale's grip tightened on the leash. Rex perked his ears, sensing the shift. The routine world of ranks and drills suddenly tilted, the chain of command stretching thin against an unseen threat. What began as a training glitch now echoed with consequence. A father's words over the line, "She didn't come home." And Rex, loyal to the end, already nosing toward the door. The fluorescent lights of the security outpost buzzed overhead, casting stark shadows on the concrete walls lined with radios and duty rosters. Petty Officer Hale stood at the counter, his utilities still dusted with the morning's training dirt. Rex sitting alert at his side. The air smelled of stale coffee and printer ink, the kind of institutional scent that clung to every base facility. Base Security Chief Ramirez, a stocky master-at-arms with salt and pepper stubble, leaned over the map spread across the desk, his finger tracing the perimeter fence where the anomaly had occurred. "Report came in at 2000 hours, Ramirez said, voice gravelly from years of shift work. "Local civilian, 18-year-old female Maria Ruiz. Father says she was hiking the trails after school. Biology club project on coastal flora. Didn't make it home for dinner. Searched the house, no sign. Last ping from her phone was near our eastern boundary, around 1600. He slid a photo across. A young woman with dark hair tied back, smiling in a school jacket, the kind of everyday image that hit like a gut punch in these sterile rooms. Hale studied it, committing the face to memory. The wide eyes, the faint freckles across her nose. Rex shifted, his nose twitching toward the photo as if scenting the paper's origin. "Matches the fabric we bagged, ma'am?" Hale asked, glancing at Lieutenant Commander Vasquez, who had arrived minutes earlier, her presence pulling the room to attention. Vasquez nodded once. Her arms crossed over her chest plate, Blue cotton seam tear, consistent with civilian wear, but we're not jumping to conclusions. This is a joint matter now. Base security coordinates with local PD. Hale, your K9's involvement is advisory only. No crossing lines without authorization. Her tone was measured, the chain of command's anchor in the rising uncertainty. She had traded her clipboard for a tablet, already pulling up protocols, SOP for off-base incidents, liaison with civilian authorities. SEALs didn't chase ghosts. They secured perimeters and reported up. Ramirez keyed his radio, the static crackle filling the pause. Echo post, this is control. Update on missing hiker. SEAL K9 team on standby. Maintain visual on sector. Affirmative responses echoed back. A chorus of disciplined efficiency. Outside, the night had deepened, the base's floodlights cutting through the dark like search beams. Hale felt the weight of it. The routine of training now entangled with the real-world void, a girl's absence echoing through the ranks. The father arrived 20 minutes later, escorted through the gate in a base shuttle. Mr. Ruiz was in his 40s. Work boots caked in trail mud, flannel shirt rumpled from the frantic drive. His eyes were red-rimmed, hands clasped tight as if to hold himself steady. "She's my only one," he said, voice breaking the room's formality. "Maria. She loves those plants, the birds, said she'd be back by sunset." He extended a small item, a hair tie woven with colorful threads. "This is hers. Please, if the dog can." Hale took it carefully, the faint scent of shampoo and salt air rising from the fabric. Rex's ears perked immediately, his body language shifting to that focused readiness Hale knew from patrols. Head low, muscles coiled. "Such," Hale commanded softly, holding the item to the dog's nose. Rex inhaled, processing, then sat back, eyes locking on Hale with unwavering intent. Vasquez observed, her expression unreadable. "Protocol, Hale. We log the sample, hand it to search and rescue. Local teams have the lead." But Ruiz's plea hung in the air, raw against the polished edges of military procedure. Hale knelt, clipping Rex's working harness, a simple leather rig with reflective strips, no frills. The bond between them was wordless, built on countless hours. Dawn runs where Rex's paws matched Hale's stride, quiet nights in barracks where the dog's steady breathing was the only comfort after a lost op. Loyalty like that didn't bend to borders. "Ma'am," Hale said, rising, "Rex is locked on her scent from the training scrap. If we move now, before wind scatters it." He let the request trail, respectful but firm. The room fell silent, Ramirez shifting uncomfortably, Ruiz's breath catching. Vasquez's jaw tightened. She was duty-bound to the regs, the invisible lines that kept the base a fortress. Crossing meant logs, inquiries, potential reprimands that climbed the chain. But inaction, that carried its own weight. The quiet erosion of what SEALs stood for, protecting the line between order and the world beyond. "Stand down," she ordered finally, though her voice lacked its usual edge. "I'll request expedited clearance from JAG. Ramirez, liaise with PD for a joint track at 600. The decision settled like dust, procedural and safe. Ruiz deflated, nodding numbly as he was led to a waiting area with coffee and a chaplain on call. Hale unclipped Rex's harness, the click echoing too loudly. "Understood, ma'am." But as he led Rex out into the cooling night, the dog's nose stayed low, questing toward the perimeter gate. The kennels were a half-mile walk, past the motor pool where engines ticked down from evening patrols. Hale's boots crunched on gravel, the base's distant hum, generators, watch changes, a reminder of the machine that never slept. Rex pulled gently, whining low, that insistent sound from the training field. Hale paused under a sodium lamp, its orange glow pooling around them. He thought of Helmond again, the point man's body in the dust, Rex's vigil pulling the team through grief. Duty had limits, conscience didn't, At 0200, Hale's radio whispered to life in his bunk. Vasquez's voice clipped. Change of plans. PD's overwhelmed. Storm front moving in. Clearance granted for preliminary track. You and Rex, my oversight. Gear up. Hale was already moving, pulling on his vest, the weight familiar and grounding. Rex met him at the kennel door, tail wagging once, approval in motion. They rendezvoused at the fence line, floodlights sweeping the scrub. Ruiz waited with Ramirez, clutching a thermos, his face etched with fragile hope. Vasquez arrived last, flanked by 2 spotters, her flashlight beam cutting the dark. Short leash, Hale. Report every 50 meters. We're observers here. K9 leads, but chain holds. Hale nodded, offering Rex the hair tie again. Such. Sudais. The Malinois surged forward, nose to the earth, Hale matching his pace through the chain-link gap. The trail was faint, damp soil from evening dew holding scents like a map. Brush whispered against their legs, the Pacific's salt tang sharpening in the breeze. Rex veered left toward a dry creek bed, his body language screaming certainty. Then, 50 yards in, he froze, pawed the dirt. Hale knelt, heart steady but pulse quickening. There, in the soft earth illuminated by Vasquez's beam, a trail of shoe prints, small, athletic treads, staggered as if running. Not deep, but deliberate, leading deeper into the chaparral. Tracks, Hale reported, voice level. Fresh, female size by the print. Vasquez crouched beside him, gloved hand hovering over the impressions. Bag samples, PD en route. But her eyes met Hale's, the moral pull evident. This wasn't training anymore. Rex sat vigilant, guarding the find, his loyalty a bridge over the divide. Ruiz, peering from the perimeter, whispered a prayer, the night's chill settling like consequence. As the team marked the site, flares and tape under the stars, Hale felt the fracture widen. Orders had bent. Now the real test loomed. The chain of command tested by footprints in the dirt. Rex's steady gaze promised more, the bond pulling them forward into the unknown. The floodlights hummed along the perimeter, their beams slicing through the pre-dawn mist like knife edges. Petty Officer Hale crouched low in the chaparral, his gloved fingers tracing the edge of the shoe prints without disturbing them. The soil was cool and yielding, holding the impressions with a clarity that spoke of recent passage, treads from lightweight sneakers, the kind favored by hikers navigating coastal trails. Rex sat rigid beside him, his breath visible in the chill air, nostrils still flaring as if committing the layered scents to memory. Earth, crushed sage, and something sharper, like exertion sweat mingled with fear. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez knelt a pace away, her flashlight steady, illuminating the trail's erratic path. It snaked deeper into the scrub, away from the base's secure lines toward the shadowed folds of the hillside. Depth suggests a single set, she noted, voice low and procedural. No drag marks. She's moving under her own power, or was. Her words carried the weight of command, a reminder that even in this off-script pursuit, the chain held firm. Spotters flanked them, one marking coordinates on a handheld GPS, the other relaying updates via encrypted radio. Control, this is Echo Team. Confirmed tracks at grid 4722. Request PDETA. Hale nodded, bagging a soil sample with deliberate care. Tweezers, lifting a fragment of leaf caught in the print, sealed in plastic for forensics. The night air pressed close, carrying the distant roar of waves against the cliffs, a rhythmic underscore to the tension. Rex whined softly, pawing once more at the ground, his harness taut under Hale's hand. The dog's insistence pulled at Hale. That silent bond forged in quieter moments. The shared water bowl after a grueling swim qual, the way Rex's flank rose and fell in sync during rack time. Loyalty like this didn't question borders. It followed the trail. Mr. Ruiz stood back at the fence line with Chief Ramirez, his silhouette etched against the base lights, thermos clutched like a lifeline. The father's eyes strained into the dark, every radio crackle drawing a flinch. "Find her," he murmured, the plea more to the night than anyone present. Ramirez placed a steadying hand on his shoulder, the gesture formal yet human. Protocol allowing brief contact in civilian liaisons. Vasquez rose, dusting her knees. "Hale, advance 50 meters, maintain line of sight. If the track veers toward civilian roads, we halt and hand off." Her order was crisp, the hierarchy's guardrail against the unknown. Hale acknowledged with a single, "Aye, ma'am," clipping a short lead to Rex's harness for control. They moved as one, the Malinois leading with purposeful steps. Hale's boots silent on the leaf litter, the chaparral thickened, branches snagging at sleeves, the scent of eucalyptus sharpening the air. Each print told a fragment. A scuff here from a stumble, a deeper heel there from haste. At the 30-meter mark, Rex stiffened again, halting abruptly. Hale dropped to one knee, scanning the ground. The prints converged on a cluster of boulders where the soil gave way to rock. But Rex nosed insistently at a crevice, his whine escalating to a low growl. "What you got, boy?" Hale murmured, shining his own light into the gap. There, wedged against a stone, half buried in dirt, a small backpack. Faded blue nylon, straps frayed, the kind a student might carry for a field trip. Hale eased it free, the fabric cool and damp, zipper partially open. Vasquez was at his side in seconds, her team forming a loose perimeter. "Don't open it yet, visual only." Hale tilted it toward the beam. Inside, a notebook peeked out, pages filled with sketches of native plants, coastal sagebrush, milkweed, labeled in neat script. Maria's biology project. A water bottle lay beside it, cap loose, contents half spilled into the dirt. No blood, no signs of struggle, but the abandonment screamed interruption. "Her pack," Hale said, voice even. "Dropped in flight." Rex circled it, sniffing the contents, then sat, his posture declaring the scent's endpoint. The dog's eyes met Hale's, that unwavering trust a counterpoint to the rising stakes. Vasquez keyed her radio. "Control, Echo Team. Recovered personal effects at grid 4725. Civilian female's backpack. Confirmed by description. Alert PD and SAR. Full mobilization." The response came swift, static, then Ramirez's gravel. "Copy. PD chopper inbound. ETA 10 mics. Hold position." Vasquez's face tightened in the light's glow, the moral calculus evident. Pushing further could yield more, but regs demanded the handoff. Hale felt it too, the pull between obedience and the void of what might lie ahead. Rex's lead trembled slightly in his grip, not from the dog, but from the handler's restrained urge to press on. As the team secured the site, flares marking the perimeter, photos snapped with digital precision, the first hints of dawn grayed the horizon. A PD cruiser crested the nearby road, lights flashing muted against the brush. Officers approached, badges glinting, notebooks at ready. Ruiz was brought forward, his steps halting as he identified the pack with a choked, "See, that's Maria's." The father's hand hovered, then withdrew, respect for the chain yielding to raw need. Vasquez briefed the lead detective, her report methodical. Timelines, coordinates, K9 confirmation. SEAL assets assisted per joint protocol. Tracks lead upslope. Recommend thermal sweeps. The detective nodded, appreciating the precision, but his glance at Hale carried a question. How far would they have gone without clearance? Hale stood silent, Rex at heel, the bond between them a quiet testament amid the converging authorities. Word spread through the base by Reveille. Whispers in the chow hall and motor pool filtering up the ranks. A missing civilian, tied to a training anomaly. Headquarters stirred, logs reviewed for any perimeter breaches. Vasquez faced the first inquiries in the ops center, her responses clipped. Advisory role only, no violations. But Hale caught the undercurrent in her posture as they returned to kennels. The subtle shift, conscience chafing against procedure. In the kennel block, as Hale brushed down Rex's coat, fur damp with dew, the scent of trail clinging, the dog leaned into the touch. a rare moment of ease. Outside, helicopters thumped overhead. CR teams deploying. The shoe prints and pack were the fracture point, Hale knew. Duty had opened the gate, but the real test loomed in what the trail revealed next. Loyalty, human and canine, bridged the gap, pulling the institution toward a reckoning it couldn't ignore. Comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far stories of courage and integrity can reach. The morning sun broke fully over the chaparral, its light filtering through the eucalyptus canopy in dappled shafts that warmed the dew-slick leaves. Petty Officer Hale stood at the edge of the secured site, his boots planted in the soft earth where the shoe prints faded into rock. Rex paced a tight circle on his lead, the Malinois' paws silent but purposeful, his coat still carrying the faint musk of the night's trail. The air hummed with activity now, PD officers coordinating with SR teams, their radios overlapping in a disciplined chatter that echoed the base's own protocols. The scent of diesel from the arriving vehicles mingled with the sharp tang of sagebrush, grounding the scene in stark reality. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez conferred with the lead detective, her tablet balanced on one arm as she relayed coordinates with precise gestures. Tracks terminate here at the boulders. K9 confirmed scent lock on personal effects. No further anomalies in the immediate grid. Her voice was steady, the chain of command extending seamlessly to civilian partners. But Hale caught the tension in her shoulders, the subtle rigidity that spoke of reports waiting to be filed, inquiries from higher echelons looming like storm clouds. The detective, a wiry man named Harlan with a notebook perpetually in hand, nodded. Appreciate the assist. We've got drones up for aerials and a grid search starting at 0800. If your dog's got more, we take the lead. His glance shifted to Rex, respect evident in the way he kept distance, acknowledging the bond without intrusion. Hale unclipped the lead briefly, letting Rex sniff the air, but the dog returned to heel without prompting, his eyes scanning the upslope as if the trail's interruption was merely a pause. Mr. Ruiz hovered at the perimeter tape, his flannel shirt sleeves rolled up against the rising heat, face drawn tight with the fragile grip of hope. An officer had handed him a folding chair, but he remained standing, eyes fixed on the backpack now bagged and labeled under fluorescent evidence lights. "She wouldn't just leave it," he said quietly to Ramirez, who stood sentinel beside him. The chief's response was a low murmur, protocol dictating support without overstep. Coffee refills, updates relayed in measured tones. Back at base by 0900, the team debriefed in the ops center, a windowless room lined with monitors and whiteboards etched with timelines. The hum of air conditioning battled the coastal warmth seeping through vents, carrying the faint salt of the ocean. Vasquez pinned photos of the prints and pack to the board, her marker scratching methodically. "Hale, walk us through the track. Every cue from Rex." Her order pulled the room to focus, spotters and Ramirez leaning in, the hierarchy reasserting itself amid the civilian crossover. Hale stood at ease, Rex settled at his feet, the dog's flank brushing his boot in quiet solidarity. "Initial lock at the fence line, ma'am." Anomalous fabric matched the hair tie sample. Rex held steady through the creek bed, scent layering consistent with forward motion. Prints showed acceleration upslope, then convergence at the drop site. No evasion patterns, straight line intent. His report was economical, voice level, but the memory of Rex's whine at the crevice lingered, a reminder of instincts sharper than any grid. Vasquez nodded, but her eyes lingered on the photo of the backpack. "Solid execution, but we're in joint ops now. SEAL involvement logs as support only. Higher command's been briefed. Expect a review from the CO by noon." The words carried weight, the institutional machine grinding into motion. Perimeter breaches, even authorized, invited scrutiny. Was the training anomaly a security lapse? Had protocol bent too far under civilian pressure? Hale felt the undercurrent, duty's rigid lines chafing against the moral imperative that had driven them into the brush. As the team dispersed, spotters to monitor feeds, Ramirez to liaise with PD, Hale led Rex to the kennel block. The concrete path baked under the sun, boots echoing softly, the distant thump of helicopter rotors, a constant pulse. Inside, the kennels smelled of fresh straw and oiled leather, rows of enclosures where other canines paced or rested, their handlers' voices a low murmur of commands and praise. Hale filled Rex's bowl with water, watching the dog lap steadily, droplets catching the light on his muzzle. "Good work, boy," he said softly, and resting on the broad head. The bond was tactile here, in the quiet aftermath, fingers tracing scars from old patrols, the dog's ear flicking in response. But the radio on Hale's belt crackled before he could settle. "Hale, report to the CO's office. Immediate." Vasquez's voice clipped with urgency. Hale clipped Rex's lead, the click of familiar anchor, and they moved out. The command offices were a short trek past the parade grounds, where a platoon drilled under the sun, sharp commands, synchronized footfalls, a reminder of order's foundation. The CO, Captain Ellis, waited in his glass-walled suite, a map of the perimeter unrolled on the desk, Vasquez at attention beside him. Ellis was a veteran of 2 decades, his frame lean and unyielding. Awards framed on the wall, like silent sentinels. "Petty officer," he began, gesturing Hale forward. Rex sat precisely, ignoring the room's sterility. "This missing civilian, your K-9's role is commendable, but we've got flags from JAG. Perimeter pursuit without full clearance, even expedited, it sets precedent." His tone was even probing rather than accusatory, but the moral tension hung thick. Loyalty to the team versus the institution's unyielding regs. Hale met his gaze steadily. "Ma'am authorized on site, sir. Rex's track aligned with the sample. Delay risked scent dissipation. No defensiveness, just facts. The handler's restraint mirroring the dog's." Vasquez shifted slightly, her input brief. "Decision mine, Captain. Joint Ops demanded response." Ellis steepled his fingers, eyes tracing the map. The shoe prints marked in red ink snaked beyond the line, a visual fracture in the base's defenses. "Understood," Ellis said finally, "but public eyes are turning. Local news picked up the story. SEAL dog aides in search. We're not Spec Ops shadows anymore, this ripples." He paused, glancing at Rex. "Your partner's instincts saved time. Keep him sharp. Vasquez, coordinate with PD for follow-up tracks if cleared." The dismissal was polite, but Hale felt the weight as they exited, the chain stretching, conscience pulling against the tide of procedure. By afternoon, the base buzzed with subdued talk. Chow lines where handlers swapped notes on K9 queues, motor pool techs tuning vehicles for potential support runs. Hale walked Rex through the training fields. The grass now dry underfoot, the Pacific's breeze carrying whispers of salt and possibility. Rex tugged toward the fence again, nose low, that insistent whine rising. Hale knelt, hand firm on the harness. "Not yet, boy." But the dog's eyes held his, loyalty unyielding, a mirror to the dilemma deepening within. Word from PD came at 1600. The tracks led to an abandoned trailhead. No sign of Maria, but a witness sighting. A girl matching her description, seen with an unfamiliar vehicle near dusk. The search expanded, helicopters sweeping the ridges, but the backpack's abandonment gnawed. Flight from what? Hale reported to Vasquez in the ready room, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, coffee steaming in unit mugs. "We push advisory only," she said, reviewing drone feeds. "But if Rex gets another lock—" Her voice trailed, the moral divide evident in the pause. Duty bound them. Conscience whispered of the father's waiting vigil, the girl's unseen path. As evening fell, Hale secured Rex in the kennel, the dog's steady breath a quiet promise amid the base's hum. The shoe prints were just the start. The real trail, human and canine, led toward a reckoning that would test the rank's core. The evening shadows stretched long across the training fields as Petty Officer Hale clipped Rex's lead in the kennel block, the metallic click echoing off the concrete walls. The air inside was thick with the scent of damp straw and polished leather, a familiar sanctuary amid the base's ceaseless rhythm. Rex leaned into Hale's leg briefly, his warm flank a steady pressure before settling on his bed with a soft huff. Hale ran a hand along the dog's neck, feeling the subtle rise and fall of muscle under fur still dusted with chaparral grit. "Rest up, boy," he murmured, the words more ritual than command. Outside, the floodlights flickered on, casting the perimeter fence in harsh relief against the deepening dusk. Vasquez waited in the ready room, her silhouette framed by the glow of monitors displaying PD drone feeds, grainy sweeps of the hillside ridges, thermal signatures flickering like ghosts. The room smelled of reheated coffee and dry erase markers, the whiteboard now cluttered with timelines branching from the shoe prints, witness sighting at 1800 hours, vehicle description partial. A dark sedan, no plates noted. She looked up as Hale entered, her posture straight but fatigued, the weight of the day's extensions visible in the faint lines around her eyes. "PD's got a break," she said, tapping the screen. The witness, older local, out walking his property line. Saw a girl, matches Maria's build, flagging down a car near the trailhead. Looked urgent, like she was asking for help. Car sped off east toward the highway. Hale nodded, pulling up a chair, his boots scraping softly on the linoleum. Rex's absence felt like a missing limb, but protocol kept the K9s out of briefings unless deployed. Rex's track ended at the pack drop. Scent broke there. If she hitched a ride... The implication hung, procedural yet laced with a moral undercurrent. A voluntary departure, or coercion masked as aid. Vasquez's fingers drummed once on the table, a rare deviation from her composed front. JAGs circling. CO wants a full log by 2200. Every authorization, every meter off base. This started as your anomaly in training. Now it's a joint op with civilian headlines brewing. The radio on the wall crackled then, Ramirez's voice cutting through. "Vasquez, Hale, PD line for you. They've got a lead on the vehicle, registered to a transient worker, construction crew out of San Diego. Guy's got priors, minor theft, but nothing violent. They're pulling him in for questioning." Static followed, the connections hum underscoring the shift from search to interrogation. Hale's mind traced back to the prints, their staggered haste, the backpack's hasty discard. Duty demanded precision, report, support, standby. But conscience tugged at the frayed edges, Rex's insistent whine from the fence replaying like a looped alert. By 2100, the team mobilized for advisory support. Hale geared up in the armory, the clink of vest plates and holster snaps, a methodical cadence under fluorescent strips. Vasquez oversaw from the ops desk, coordinating with PD via secure link. SEAL K9 ready for scent confirmation if needed. Location, impound lot, 15 mics out. Her orders were crisp, extending the chain to civilian channels without overreach. Hale loaded Rex into the transport crate, the Malinois settling with a single glance back. Trust embodied in that quiet acceptance. The drive off base was a blur of sodium-lit roads, the Humvee's tires humming over asphalt, base lights receding in the rear view. The impound lot sprawled under chain link and halogens, a concrete expanse ringed by squat buildings reeking of oil and rust. PD cruisers idled, their exhaust mingling with the coastal fog rolling in from the Pacific. Detective Harlan met them at the gate, his notebook exchanged for a tablet, face etched with the grind of overtime. "Vehicles here, 98, Accord, dark green, owners in holding, lawyering up, won't say much beyond picked up a hitchhiker, dropped her at a bus stop." His tone carried skepticism, the moral ambiguity of the statement landing heavy. Hale uncrated Rex, the dog's paws padding softly as he acclimated to the new scents. Exhaust fumes, cooling engine blocks. The faint, metallic bite of the chain link. Vasquez nodded to Harlan. K9 sweep for trace. Advisory only. No chain of custody breach. Protocol was her shield. The hierarchy's protocol ensuring SEAL assets augmented without commandeering. Hale offered Rex the hair tie sample again, wrapped in fresh plastic to preserve integrity. Such, he commanded low, the German word blending with the lot's ambient drone. Rex inhaled, then moved toward the Accord with deliberate steps, nose skimming the door panel. His tail remained level, no alert, but at the trunk latch he paused, nostrils flaring, a subtle paw lift. Hale knelt, gloved hand hovering. Possible hit, ma'am, weak, but layered. Harlan signaled his team, who taped off the vehicle with efficient slaps of evidence tape. We'll process it. If it's her scent, could tie the driver to transport. But as they waited for the forensics techs, white suits rustling in the fog, Mr. Ruiz arrived, escorted by a uniform, his eyes hollow under the lot's glare. He'd insisted on coming, protocol bent for the family's stake. Did she get in? Was she hurt? The questions tumbled out, raw against the lot's impersonal hum. Vasquez stepped forward, her response measured. We're confirming traces, sir. Your cooperation with the sample helped get us here. Rex sat vigilant beside the car, his gaze fixed on Hale, that bond a silent anchor amid the converging uncertainties. The driver, a lanky man in his 30s with grease-stained hands, was visible through the holding room window, head down, conferring with counsel. No malice in his posture, but the priors loomed, a shadow over intent. Hale felt the pull, obedience to the handoff, or the urge to press Rex further, to chase the scents whisper into the night. Vasquez caught his glance, her own expression flickering, duty's line blurring under the fog's chill. Forensics yielded partials by midnight. Fibers in the trunk matching Maria's backpack weave, a faint scent trace per lab prelims. The driver cracked under pressure, admitting he'd picked her up in a rush, driven her to a gas station 10 miles east, seen her board a bus southbound. No force, he claimed, just a scared kid needing a lift from some creep on the trail. Details emerged piecemeal. Maria had spotted a suspicious figure near the boulders, bolted, dropped her pack in panic. The creep, a drifter perhaps evading description, had spooked her enough to flag the first car. Word filtered back to base by Olo 200, the ops center alive with updates. Captain Ellis joined the late debrief, his presence pulling the room taut. This escalates, he said, reviewing the logs. K9 confirmation tied it together, commendable, but exposures high. Media sniffing, sealed dog cracks missing hiker case. His eyes met Hale's. Your initiative in training flagged the anomaly. Chain held, but it bent. JAG review tomorrow, expect questions on perimeter protocol. The institutional gears turned, consequence rippling, commendations balanced against procedural audits. The base's defenses under scrutiny. As dawn crept in, Hale walked Rex through the dew-heavy fields, the dog's stride matching his own, paws leaving faint prints in the grass. The Pacific crashed distantly, a reminder of boundaries crossed and held. Mr. Ruiz's call came via Ramirez, Maria safe at a shelter in Oceanside, shaken but unharmed, bus to family friends, phone dead from the drop. Relief washed through the ranks, quiet nods in the chow hall. But Hale sensed the deeper fracture. Rex's instincts had pierced the routine, forcing the system to adapt. Loyalty, canine and human, had bridged the gap, but the reckoning loomed, testing where duty ended and conscience began. Vasquez's briefing note arrived. Full team stand down, pending reform proposals on K9 civilian protocols. The trail's end marked a beginning, the institution stirring under the weight of one dog's unyielding nose. The morning light filtered through the blinds of the JAG hearing room, casting striped shadows across the polished oak table where Captain Ellis sat flanked by legal aides. The air carried the faint scent of lemon polish and fresh legal pads, a sterile contrast to the chaparral's earthy tang that still lingered in Petty Officer Hale's memory. He stood at attention in his dress blues, the wool crisp against his skin. Rex absent, but his presence felt in the handler's steady posture. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez positioned herself beside him, her uniform impeccable, jaw set in quiet resolve. The room's walls, lined with framed codes of conduct, seemed to close in, the hum of the base's distant generators a muffled reminder of the world beyond. Commander Laura Kent, the presiding JAG officer, entered with measured steps, her heels clicking on the tile like a metronome. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed behind wire-rimmed glasses, her file thick with the case's documentation, training logs, perimeter breach authorizations, PD after-action reports. "This informal inquiry convenes at 0900, she announced, settling at the head. "Captain Ellis, your command's involvement in the Ruiz incident. Clarify the chain of command decisions." Her voice was neutral, procedural, but the undercurrent of scrutiny rippled through the room. Witnesses from base security and PD's Detective Harlan seated along the side, notebooks open. Ellis cleared his throat, the sound amplified in the quiet space. "Ma'am, the anomaly during routine canine training, fabric scrap, escalated via civilian report. Lieutenant Commander Vasquez authorized expedited perimeter pursuit per Joint Ops Protocol. Petty Officer Hales K9, Rex, confirmed scent leads, recovering the backpack and facilitating vehicle trace. No violations, all actions logged and cleared." His report was concise, the institutional defense woven with facts, but Hale caught the subtle tension in Ellis's clasped hands, the moral weight of defending a bend in the regs that had exposed the base to civilian headlines. Kent flipped through pages, her pen tapping once. "Yet media coverage, Seal Dog saves local teen, has drawn congressional eyes. Perimeter protocols exist for security, not ad hoc searches. Vasquez, your rationale?" She turned to the lieutenant commander, who met her gaze without flinching. Vasquez's fingers rested lightly on the table, a subtle anchor. "Time critical, ma'am. Stormfront threatened scent dissipation. Delay could have prolonged the search. Hale's bond with Rex is exemplary. Deployed assets proven in contested environments. Civilian safety aligns with our mandate. Protect the line. Extend when necessary." Her words carried restraint, emotion emerging in the brief pause. The loyalty to her team unspoken, but evident in the way her shoulders squared. Hale remained silent as protocol demanded, but the room's atmosphere pressed on him. The faint creak of chairs as Harlan shifted, the scratch of pens documenting every exchange. Outside, through the narrow window, a K9 training session unfolded. Handlers and dogs moving in synchronized drills, leashes taut, commands sharp. It mirrored the hearing's tension, order tested by instinct. Kent's eyes settled on Hale. "Petty Officer, your initiative flagged the anomaly. Walk us through the K9 cues. Were they within training bounds?" Hale stepped forward slightly, voice level. "Initial track stayed on base, ma'am." Rex locked on the sample at the fence. His posture, stiff tail, insistent whine, indicated extension. "I requested permission, denied initially, then granted under exigent circumstances." No embellishment, just the facts. But his hand flexed at his side, recalling the harness's grip, Rex's unyielding pull. The inquiry stretched into the afternoon, breaks marked by the chime of a wall clock, coffee served in plain mugs that steamed with institutional bitterness. Harlan provided PD testimony, his delivery straightforward. Seal assist shaved hours off our timeline. Fibers and scent traced from the vehicle corroborated, girls safe because of it. But Kent probed deeper. And the media leak? Base PR reports unauthorized photos from the site. Ellis interjected, "Internal matter, ma'am. Handled." The revelation hung. A public fracture, local news vans spotted at the gate, reporters clamoring for the dog hero's story. The base's veil of routine pierced. As the hearing recessed for deliberation, Vasquez pulled Hale aside in the corridor, the linoleum cool under their boots, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. "They'll clear us," she said quietly, though doubt flickered in her eyes. "But reforms incoming. K9 civilian protocols tightened. Your call in training started this." Hale nodded, the weight settling. Duty had held. But conscience had forced visibility, witnesses from ranks to headlines bearing record. A young enlisted man passed, saluting crisply, his glance lingering on Hale with unspoken respect, the ripple already stirring through the platoon. Word of the inquiry spread like radio chatter through the base by chow time, mess hall conversations hushed under the clatter of trays. Handlers in the corner booth swapped nods with Hale, one murmuring, "Rex earned that commendation." Mr. Ruiz arrived unannounced at the visitor center, cleared for a brief thanks, his work boots scuffing the entry mat. "Maria's home," he said, extending a hand, his grip firm despite the tremor. "She saw a man lurking, scared her bad. Your dog." He knew. Hale shook it. The human connection brief but profound, emotion restrained in the nod that followed. Vasquez observed from afar, her radio clipped, the chain extending to include this civilian thread. Captain Ellis reconvened the group in his office by 1600, the map from the night before still unrolled, shoeprints faded under new annotations. Kent's verdict arrived via secure line. No fault found. Actions justified under exigent protocol. Recommend commendation for Hale and K9 unit. Institute K9 civilian liaison training. Relief settled quietly, like the evening breeze through the open window, but Ellis's expression held caution. Public reckoning's just begun. Media wants interviews. CO approves limited release. Vasquez, Hale, represent the team. Show the bond, the discipline. The order carried transformation's seed. From shadow ops to symbols, integrity laid bare under scrutiny. As dusk fell, Hale walked Rex along the surf line, waves crashing with measured force, the dog's paws leaving prints in the wet sand that the tide would soon erase. The Pacific salt spray misted their faces. Rex's ears perked against the wind, sensing the shift in Hale's stride. The hearing had tested them. The institution's response, a tribunal of procedure, witnesses etching the story into logs and law. Loyalty had prevailed, but the cost lingered, reforms to bridge duty and conscience. Hale's quiet defiance in training, now a legacy rippling through the ranks. Rex paused, nose to the ground, as if scenting the future, unwavering, pulling forward. If this story already has your respect, hit the like button. It helps the story of Marcus Hale reach those who still believe in honor. The surf crashed rhythmically against the shore, its foam hissing as it retreated over the wet sand, leaving behind a lace of seaweed and shells. Petty Officer Marcus Hale walked the narrow strip of beach at Camp Pendleton's edge, the evening wind carrying the sharp tang of salt and kelp, tugging at the hem of his utilities. Rex trotted beside him, paws imprinting the damp earth before the tide erased them, his coat ruffled by the breeze, but his stride steady, as if the dog's internal compass still oriented toward unfinished trails. Hale's boots sank slightly with each step, the cool moisture seeping through the treads, grounding him after the day's scrutiny. The JAG hearing's verdict echoed in his mind. Not exoneration with fanfare, but a quiet affirmation. Protocols upheld, commendations pending for the K9 unit. Yet the ripples extended further, the base's institutional machinery humming with adjustments yet to come. Back at the barracks, the ready room lights glowed softly against the twilight, casting long shadows across the folding tables where handlers gathered for the evening brief. The air smelled of chow hall remnants, steamed rice and grilled chicken, mingled with the faint ozone of charging radios. Lieutenant Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the front, her tablet projecting a simple slide: K9 Civilian Liaison Protocol Draft. Her voice cut through the murmurs, precise as a salute. Captain Ellis's directive: integrate advisory roles for off-base incidents. Training modules start next week. Scent work in mixed terrain, joint ops with PD. Hale, your input on Rex's cues shaped this. Heads turned toward him, nods passing like silent acknowledgements in the chain of command. No heroics, just the procedural evolution, duty refined by conscience. Hale leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Rex at his feet under the table, the dog's head resting on his boot in quiet vigil. Focus on wind factors, ma'am. Scent dissipates fast in coastal scrub. Rex's alerts came early because we drilled it. His contribution was measured, emotion restrained in the facts, but Vasquez's glance held a flicker of respect. The bond between officer and handler strengthened by the shared test. The room filled with low agreements, handlers jotting notes, one murmuring about expanding K9 rotations to include civilian search simulations. The fracture from the training anomaly had widened into reform. Logs updated, perimeters mapped for dual-use trails, JAG guidelines loosened just enough to bridge military precision with human urgency. Loyalty, once confined to patrols and drills, now extended outward, a legacy etched in policy. Word of Maria Ruiz's full recovery reached the base by 2000 hours, relayed through Ramirez's security channel with a tone of subdued closure. She'd been shaken. The creep, a transient with a record of harassment, spotted by PD patrols miles inland, but safe, reuniting with her father under the glow of an oceanside street lamp. Mr. Ruiz's follow-up call came to the visitor center, his voice steadier over the line, thanking Vasquez directly. Your team. They didn't wait for papers. Maria wants to write Rex a letter. The civilian thread wove into the military fabric, a quiet humanizing of the ranks. Hale overheard it while walking Rex past the motor pool, engines cooling with soft ticks, the night's chill settling like resolution. Media attention crested the next morning. A local news crew cleared for a controlled interview at the training fields. The sun climbed high, baking the grass into a golden haze, the scent of sun-warmed earth rising as Hale and Rex positioned under the observation post. Vasquez flanked him, her posture impeccable, while a reporter, microphone in hand, camera crew framing the shot, approached with measured steps. Petty Officer Hale, your dog's instincts turned a routine drill into a rescue. What drives that bond? The question hung in the open air. Floodlights from the crew, mixing with natural light, medals on Hale's chest, catching glints. He glanced at Rex, the Malinois sitting alert, ears pricked toward the unfamiliar voices. Training and trust, ma'am, Hale replied, voice even, eyes on the horizon where the Pacific met sky. Rex follows the scent, I follow the chain. When it led off base, we adapted. Duty to protect doesn't stop at the fence. No embellishment, just the disciplined truth, emotion emerging in the subtle tightening of his jaw, the way his hand rested lightly on the harness. Vasquez added, SEALs secure the line. This case shows how K9 units extend it. The clip aired that evening, snippets playing in the chow hall under the clatter of utensils. From anomaly to action, the SEAL who followed his dog's nose. Whispers followed, enlisted men saluting a beat longer, a handler in the kennels clapping Hale's shoulder with a nod. Public reckoning had transformed scrutiny into symbol. Hale and Rex as emblems of moral strength, the institution's rigidity yielding to quiet integrity. By week's end, the reforms took root. Captain Ellis convened a unit-wide assembly on the parade grounds, boots thudding in unison as the platoon formed up under the flagpole, the snap of fabric in the breeze underscoring his words. The Ruiz incident tested us, not just protocols, but conscience within command. Hale's vigilance sparked change, new liaisons, expanded training. Remember, loyalty binds us, man to dog, team to mission. His gaze swept the ranks, lingering on Hale, who stood front and center, Rex at heel. The applause was restrained, a ripple of disciplined pride, but it carried weight. Mentorship born from the event, senior handlers pulling juniors aside for scent work tips, Vasquez assigning Hale to lead the first civilian sim. In the kennel that night, as Hale brushed Rex's coat under the soft glow of a single bulb, the fur smooth and warm, the dog's eyes half closed in contentment, the transformation settled. The shoe prints in the dirt, once a defiant trail, now mapped a path forward. The system learned, adapting without breaking, conscience reinforcing duty. Hale clipped the harness for a final walk, the base's lights twinkling like distant stars. Rex's steady pull, a promise of unwavering trust. One act of following the nose had rippled through careers and codes, leaving a legacy of balanced strength. Soldier and K9 forever linked in the quiet evolution of honor. Epilogue. In the end, the trail's echoes taught the ranks that true loyalty navigates not just the known paths, but the moral ones that redefine the horizon. Subscribe for more stories of loyalty, courage, and justice within the ranks. Thank you for watching the case of She Didn't Come Home, the father said. The K9 led the SEAL to a trail of shoe prints in the dirt. See you in the next one.